Good afternoon. My pleasure and privilege to host today Radhika Ghai, three-time entrepreneur. Radhika, thank you for coming in all the way from Delhi to be here with us today. And what a fascinating journey you've had. Right? So what I want to do over the next 40-45 minutes is to uncover the journey. I'd like you to share with us some part of your journey, some insights, some perspectives. And you are such an inspiration, such a role model for so many people, right? Talk to us a little bit about your journey and talk to us about, and you are obviously, I think, the first unicorn led by a lady, which is one of the first 4 unicorns in India, right? And now you are on to your third startup, right? So it'd be lovely to hear your insights and thoughts. And without further ado, right, let's start at the beginning, right? You were telling me as we were coming into this that you had a fairly typical army child's life all over India, right? And then you did your went to the US, did an MBA there. So let's start with that a little bit, and then get into.
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here completely, and it's fabulous, T-Hub. I'm so inspired by what I'm seeing here and the number of startups that are here as well. I consider myself a veteran founder now because I've done this for about 15 odd years, and I just have to say I'm a little jealous for everybody who's working out of here because the whole ecosystem has come together so beautifully. It is phenomenal. So kudos to you and your entire team for sure. My father was in the army, so as you mentioned that, and went to 10 odd different schools. Hated it every time I had to move to a different school.
So how many languages do you speak?
I speak Hindi, English, Marathi, Punjabi fairly well. And of course, fluent in Hindi and English, Marathi and Punjabi fairly well. I know all the cuss words, so that qualifies. And I know cuss words.
You're a polyglot.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So Sanskrit also was the bane of my life, but I know it. So that's been a check there. But going to different schools, and every time Dad would get transferred, it would feel like the world was coming to an end. And now as the mother of 2 teenagers, I understand what my parents possibly went through as well. I felt that, we were being taken away from our friends, taken away from our school. But in hindsight, I have to say that the persistence that it taught me, the grit it taught me, even today, there are so many setbacks, in an entrepreneur's life. It's never smooth, never. I know from outside, sometimes it just feels, look at that. Look at Kazala, like how phenomenal she's been able to do. She looks great. She's built out a great company. She has a great relationship. But I can tell you that the life of an entrepreneur is never smooth, flat, as it seems from outside. And I think that's one thing that I landed up learning from my childhood as well, is wherever you are taken off, you are, what is the right word, uprooted from it, you plant it somewhere else, you get in and plant yourself. So I'm a very hardy plant. I can be put anywhere and I can face any situation, and it's a big thank you to my upbringing for sure. I also have another anecdote or kind of a gratitude to my father. My father always told me that you can be anything. The difference, MSR, was that I did not know the definition of anything. I thought that I did my undergrad in MSU and got married fairly quickly after that, and thought that was it. Working on my husband's ambition is the extent of my own ambition as well. And then decided that I wanted to go to the US because we were both going to move to the US. And I remember thinking, what are the colleges I should apply to? And luckily, I had a very good mentor who told me that I should apply to the top universities. My own confidence in myself, I won't even call it confidence, it's just the vision was slightly limited, that what was possible. This was the dean at WashU Olin School of Business, Professor Gupta, who told me, no, you have to apply to all the best schools. And I thought, I don't have the money to go to those schools. I don't know if I'll get into those schools. What's going to happen? And he pushed me, and I got into all the schools. Every school that I applied to. And I chose to go to WashU because he was there, and he played a very, very big part in my life. Again, started business school and thought I wanted to, what are my career options? I'd done a short stint in advertising before that, so was fond of understood consumer insights, and was going through the wage lists, the salaries that outgoing MBAs get, and saw that, Goldman, McKinsey, they get the highest salaries. So I said, I want to go for that. And I again went and had a chat with him. I said, I'm looking at these, but I don't think they'll hire me because, brown girl in a different country where all of investment banking is led by a lot of white men. Will I be able to get into that? He said, if you don't try, you're not going to get it. And he's the one who kept giving me that nudge and who expanded the horizon of my anything. I said, yeah, it's possible. I can do it. And I did it. So that's really been the journey of my whole life till today, where the definition of anything keeps expanding for me.
Got it. No, I think two things I took away. One is the fact that, you must have gone to maybe a half a dozen plus schools.
Right.
And every time you go, I've been through that myself. So I can relate to that, you have to, and those were the days where you didn't have social media and all of that. You have to go out, make new friends, get accustomed to a, new environment, compete, academically on the sports field and all of that. Yeah, it makes you tough, right? And then the second thing is you said the power of the possible,
Yes.
right? You're only limited many times. Many of our limitations tend to be self-imposed.
Yes.
And it requires sometimes a nudge from someone else who says, listen, if you don't try, you don't want to die wondering, as they say, right? So great story. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a fast forward. You told me you started with Goldman.
Yeah.
You didn't enjoy it as much as you thought you would, apart from the pay and the perks.
Power.
Right.
In New York, everybody, as you walk out of the Goldman office and all the tourists are waving out to you. That was pretty good.
Good. Yeah.
That's about it.
And then you got into Nordstrom.
Yes.
Right. Which in many ways I think kind of set the foundation for the journey
I felt
which you had.
I belonged there from day zero.
So you were there for 7 years.
Yes.
Right. And then you said you had to go through a personal crisis,
Yes.
which is when you had to start thinking about what you wanted to do. And that's what led to your first business, right? Which was ShopClues.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about what you were trying to do in ShopClues and how it laid the kind of foundation.
Yeah. So ShopClues is a very, very interesting journey. I was bedbound for a few months, and I've always enjoyed fashion. That's been my passion, and I enjoy Bollywood and all the masala. It keeps my life spicy, and I started writing a blog. I actually started writing a blog more for my friends on fashion in Bollywood, fashion happening in India, who's wearing what designers from the US. And it just kind of exploded overnight, literally. I was getting this, it was not a commercial venture.
This was when
2008.
Okay.
2008, end of 2008 is when it started. And I started getting consumers from over 50,000 consumers, over 50,000 visitors coming in at that time from 10 different countries. And Malayalam Manorama reached out to me, and they wanted to syndicate the content. And
so what did you call the column?
So it was called ShopClues. It was ShopClues. It had different columns within it, and but it was just, this person is dressed well, this one should be styled like this. Those kind of stories were there. It was just fun. It was a fun hobby that kind of took on its own life. And then Malayalam Manorama reached out, and they said they wanted to syndicate it, but I was talking mostly about Bollywood, and they said we wanted to write a little bit more about South Indian stars as well. So I said I can easily do that. It's something I enjoy. It's not work, so we'll kind of expand into that. They became my first paying clients. till then, I thought that, it's a blog, so I'll put in the Google widgets and I'll start making money. So I was making somewhere around $7,000 to $8,000 on a monthly basis. And suddenly all my content was getting syndicated. Malayalam Manoma reached out, and then MSN reached out. It used to be the days of MSN.com, the landing page to go to Hotmail. And they wanted to syndicate the content as well. So I started getting all this syndication money, and I thought that there was a business possible in it. And one of the largest VC firms also reached out, and they said that this business looks exciting. Let's talk about it. How do we expand it further?
So I'm going to interrupt.
Completely
Interrupt you
accidental.
here.
Yes.
So, from a fashion standpoint,
Yeah.
right? So obviously, whom would you, just to kind of make a slightly detour from what we are saying. So who do you consider, let's say, our top 5 best, most fashionable stars, both from Bollywood and from, this side of India?
Okay.
I'm
Now
going to put you on the
now
spot.
you put me on the spot here.
I know,
right?
that was the idea.
So with no political affiliation whatsoever, I think Kangana Ranaut dresses very, very well, and she dresses to the occasion. I think Rashmika Mandana dresses very well, and she appeals to her audience extremely well. From a slightly older generation, Kareena Kapoor holds true to her own style sense. She doesn't necessarily follow what is in trend. And same thing for her sister as well, Karishma Kapoor. For actresses in their 40s, she's phenomenally well dressed, one of the best dressed, of course. And then, of course, my personal all-time favorite is Samantha Ruth Prabhu. I think she's very, very well dressed.
Can I ask you a politically incorrect question?
Yeah.
Whose fashion sense could do with some improvement?
Oh my God. I think all these young girls who are in there and wearing slightly inappropriate clothing for inappropriate occasions. So Ananya Pandey could do slightly better. And that whole tribe of the Bollywood wives could do slightly better too. But now if I have to get any of them to represent my company, I won't be able to.
Okay. And what about from the men?
I have an all-time favorite, and I'm sitting in Hyderabad, so Rana Dagupati is, yay, God. So,
Okay, good to hear that.
yes. So I think he's phenomenal. I had the opportunity of meeting him once. We were both speaking at the same conference, so I had my fangirl moment there. I love how Ranveer Singh dresses, because he pushes the limit to
Very edgy.
everything. Yeah.
Very edgy. Right?
Very edgy. And that's how it should be, fearless. It truly works for him. He doesn't necessarily think he has to toe the line anywhere, and that is a phenomenal place to be. I think otherwise everybody dresses the same, most men.
Men, yeah.
Black.
Boring?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's get back to work now. Yeah? Okay. So you did this. You told me that you had a VC who reached out.
Yeah,
about
but I wasn't ready. I didn't know. They said business plan, and business plan is a very it's a longer process, and I didn't know how this was going to move forward. And I spoke to my then husband Sandeep, he was an equity research analyst, so he understood the space really well. And we started thinking about e-commerce, because he understood the business model, what's the monetization. I understood retail, merchandising, marketing, consumer aspect of it. We got a couple of co-founders to come and join us. And then Fashion Clues took the life of Deal Clues, which we thought would look more like a flash sale model. And we actually went down to LA and picked up a lot of stuff and thought that we'll pick up this fashion, bring it to India, and then we'll start retailing it. And as the team got together, I think our ambition grew larger as well, because we flew out to India. We'd been out of India pretty much since we were 21, 22. So there was a little bit of gap that had grown for us on how we perceived India and how India really was. We came back to India on vacation or on a hunting trip in 2010. And I remember thinking that so much opportunity, so much possible, right? So much possible. Before that, Sandeep had come back to India when Make My Trip had gone public, and he'd come back equally excited, which the rest of us were unable to see because we hadn't visited. And we thought if we have to move back to India, and we were in our early 30s, mid 30s, children in school, and very similar to India, if you put children in private schools in the US, which like all good Indians we do, it is difficult to pull them out and then put them back in. So it was you're burning your bridges when you do this. So we said we're going to move back to India. But Cruise is also not a large enough opportunity. We said we'll go all out and build the Walmart of India. At that time, what really was happening in India was that there was Flipkart that looked more like a mall. And then there were a lot of these legacy players, Rediff, Rediff, and India Times Shopping, etc., etc. So we decided that we're going to build out ShopClues, and the thought process was that India shops in bazaars. The strip malls, the bazaars, and tier 2, tier 3 cities. They shop in this Mangal Bazaar, Shani Bazaar, Ravi Bazaar.
Habits in Hyderabad.
Yeah, all of these places. And none of that was online, right? We're also a country of traders. None of that was online. It was just the branded, organized retail that was online. And even in the offline space, that was less than 2 to 3%. India was shopping not in these places. India was shopping in bazaars. So we came back in 2011 to set up ShopClues. And the story at ShopClues was, our belief was that we will bring supply and demand together on the same platform and magic will happen, right? Maybe if you see all the products, you'll start buying all the products. In theory, sounds perfect, right? We raised money on that, etc., all of that.
So who were the first set of investors?
So the first set of investors, actually, the first term sheet we got was in the Bay Area. It was for about $5 million. And this was from a very large VC. And we pulled the kids out of the school and everything. And then we got a call from them that they're not going to honor the term sheet because Amazon had announced that they're going to enter India. So we rustled up about 1.8 million from friends and family and said, we decided to move, we're just going to move. So we moved here. Our second check came in from Nexus fairly quickly, Helion, and we had a bunch of family, friends, angels who joined in the journey as well. But it was the same thing. It was enough of supply had been brought on, enough of demand was there. Sparks should fly. But it took us a good 2 to 3 years to start seeing traction. So firstly, aggregating the supply was not as easy as we thought it would be. We would literally, the team, which was exactly 15 odd people, top-heavy team, 5 co-founders and the rest of them, would sit outside Jute Ka Dukaan and take a picture of every shoe and put it up on it. Sit outside the printer shop, take a picture of every printer, put in the specs, load the catalog. Because digital catalogs didn't exist. It was what we were doing was truly groundbreaking work. When we set up our first warehouse, I remember us going there and getting these fluorescent tapes and putting them up because there was no 3PL players who were available for them to build out a warehouse for us. So 2 years, a lot of work built on building out, what is the technology going to look like? What does a marketplace truly mean?
So what were you essentially in terms of ShopClues, right?
Yes.
What was the original premise on which you...
Original premise and final premise remained the same. It was bring the bazaars of India online, and tier 2, tier 3 from India will shop.
Why not the major urban metros?
Urban metros के लिए Flipkart था. We didn't need to go head on against them at that time. For us, this was a very large thing. But there was one problem, right? It's also the time when you would pick up your phone and switch off data. Do you remember those days when people would switch off data because data was so expensive? Yeah. In 2013, when data became cheap, when Jio came about, when the government said Jan Dhan Yojana will happen, so you have to have a digital footprint of one kind or the other, Aadhaar happened. That is when we saw a complete shift. That's when we saw the consumer become more comfortable buying. There's another very interesting trend that I saw there. For us, our larger categories were fashion, home and kitchen. We were doing very well with electronics, accessories, etc. And 95% of our consumers were men. But 15% of what we were selling were women's fashion.
So they were buying for friends
They
and
were
family.
buying for family because they would go home in the evening, open their laptop. This is pre-phone era, and buy for their mom, girlfriend, sister, daughter, all of that, because they didn't have their own credit card.
I was going to come to that. So the UPI was a seminal,
UPI was
the seminal.
Yes. UPI was a big one. Phone, mobile, massive catalyst. So we were in the right place at the right time as well. So 3 big catalysts, right? Mobile phone, India leapfrogged PC world completely. Instead of getting the a connection, an internet connection in every house, we got mobile phones. So everybody had their own device. And second was UPI, right? Easy access to be able to do the transactions. Third was, of course, UPI and COD go hand in hand, but UPI was a bigger one. And the third one was digital footprint increasing, right?
Penetration
Data becoming
cheaper and penetration and all of that.
penetration going up. That's
So how many
2013.
categories did you have on the platform?
So I'll tell you, at peak, we had about I want to say about 15 million SKUs uploaded on the site.
Okay.
We had 7.5 lakh merchants on the site.
Wow.
7.5 lakh merchants. So
Okay.
we were category agnostic, we were brand agnostic.
And who did the physical management of?
Technology. All
So did you have warehouses?
We had
Or was it
warehouses,
a-
but we were
was it an
totally
event?
marketplace.
No, not an inventory led. No,
Asset
not.
light, completely asset light.
Okay.
Completely asset light. The merchant would have his own app. He would see that I've sold these 2 bottles today, and this guy's going to come pick it up at that time, and we would have our guy or the 3PL partner go in and buy it. So there were multiple technology layers that were built out, and eventually when the company got sold to a Korean player, they actually broke it up into parts, and there are multiple parts of the company that exist because the technology, each one of the technology was built out from scratch.
Okay. Who's leading the tech part?
So Sanjay Sethi, he was leading all of the product and tech part,
Okay.
and it was I think this is the other thing I want to talk about. I'm a non-tech co-founder of a consumer tech company. My experience at Nordstrom was when they were migrating from their catalog business to Nordstrom.com, which has held them in really good stead now. And I remember learning everything from scratch. Of course, I understand process is something I understand very, very well. And it was crash course into learning everything about technology. How is it going to work? How are we going to push it out? But everything that we built out, because it was about giving the consumer anxiety-free shipping, high trust, right? So that means consumer...
How did you? So 2 questions here, Radhika. One is quality,
Yeah.
right? So many of them may probably be first-time shoppers, right? So one question on, how did you, that anxiety,
Yeah.
how do you make it frictionless,
Yeah.
sort of thing? That was one question. Second is customer acquisition,
Yeah.
right? Talk us through how do you, build,
Yeah.
build it up.
Building out a marketplace, when we went out and pitched the first time around about a marketplace, I remember there was a lot of explaining we had to do on what is a marketplace, really. So the best way we could build out trust for the consumer was rating and reviews to a granular level. So you could see the ratings and reviews of the product on multiple facets. You could also go in and see the rating and reviews of the merchant who was selling the product on multiple facets. So let's say for me, it's important that I buy these bottles and they reach me tomorrow, right? So I could go in and look at, what is the quality of the product and go in and see the merchant, whether he ships on time, he ships in 2 to 3 days, whether he ships it out in a good packaging, he ships out good products, etc. And then tech built out to be able to pull these products to the top,
Okay.
along with personalization, so that you only see the product. You see everything, of course, but you see the products that are
You-
rated high for
Oh.
you.
Got it. Understood.
And that is something I think we cracked that in 2014, and it was phenomenal because we saw our conversion rate just go through the roof overnight. And
So how did you, the customer acquisition
acquisition part was a phenomenal journey. I think we did some of it right now in hindsight, but at that time it felt like it was an uphill task altogether because we were doing two things. Firstly, we were telling people, look, there is this massive bazaar that we have online. So we didn't just want them to come on ShopClues, we wanted them to come online and then come to ShopClues. So there were two tasks you had to two hurdles you had to cross, right? First is make people comfortable with online. So when I say that we've put in a lot of effort in shaping up the ecosystem, it truly is, because it's the first time, I would say 90% of our consumers, it's the first time they had transacted online. We looked at how they were shopping offline. I talked earlier about the Mangal Bazaars and the Shani Bazaars, and we replicated those online. So we launched something called the Sunday Flea Market, where you could find a whole variety of products under 500 rupees, great products, good quality products, very, very well priced products. And we used that as a hook for more and more consumers to come on board.
Okay.
Their first, the first...
So it's not something which is going to kill somebody type of thing. It's not something which is going to pinch somebody's pocket. So could be even an impulse buy.
Okay. So I think we were the first in the industry to use merchandising as a marketing tool. So not just the Sunday flea market we also launched something called jaw-dropping deals, which was 9 rupees for a deodorant. Now, and that was the kind of products we had. We had a wallet, we had Reebok socks, etc.
But if you have a product for $9, the cost of
my cost of customer acquisition is still phenomenally lower. It would be 9 rupees and another 19 rupees for shipping. But my cost of customer acquisition on performance and all is 200 rupees. Here, my cost for customer acquisition is 40 odd rupees. So the thought process was always from the unit economics point of view, also making it comfortable for the consumer to make his first purchase online. That was the most important thing.
Okay.
This is I'm still in touch with some of our early merchants. One of the first merchants who came on board, they went on to do phenomenally well on Amazon. They've built out large brands that they've sold to Goat and all of that. And I still talk to them and they tell me, about the kind of impact that ShopClues had on their life.
It really got them.
It got them into
the digital world. Basically.
Yes,
absolutely.
completely. So 750,000 merchants have stories of women merchants who came on board and built out their business from ground, where the husband joined, the Devar joined, the Saas joined. Everybody started off.
So you kind of precede Meesho.
100%. Yeah. Okay. I think Meesho still gets a lot of pushback on being very ShopClues like. I still talk to a lot of these founders, not Meesho, but there are a couple of other founders where we're building up something.
So you scaled the company, right? You scaled it rapidly,
yes.
And then I think there was some falling out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you said 5 founders. So must have been not easy.
Yeah.
Panch Pandav also had differences of opinion sometimes. So tell us a little bit about how that must have been very tough, right? Because here it is, you guys have kind of built it. It's like, putting this, something's, sowing something, scaling it, and then you have this, right?
Yeah.
So what?
Our CEO had a personal crisis. So he had to step away from the company. And once he stepped away from the company, for the rest of us, Sanjay kind of took over as the CEO there. And for the rest of us, what landed up happening was that suddenly there was a bit of a tussle. What is going on? Who's going to lead? What's not going to happen? And we had 2 more founders who kind of left because they thought that the opinions did not match. Right? We had done our Series B at that time. We've raised about $33 million in total at that time. We were valued at $33 million at that time. And we had we had a conversation that was going on with Tiger Global at that time. They had reached out to us, and Sandeep had already moved out of the company a couple of years ago. As they say, success has many fathers, failure has none.
Failure is an orphan.
Yeah. Failure is an offer completely. I think that's kind of what landed up happening. Everybody wanted credit for what was being built out. But on the ground, there were just a few of us who were left holding the king. But my advice to a lot of people who build out companies, I've invested in about 30 odd startups over the last 2 to 3 years, and I mentor a lot of younger entrepreneurs also, is that don't get scared when you hear a lot of these stories. Try and cordon yourself with the right paperwork, but trust is critical. Co-founders are critical. A strong founding team is critical, but trust is critical. To take that trust, it'll happen. Stand back on your feet and do it again. Trust is critical. When you look at the most successful founders, they talk a lot about being it escapes me right now, but the only person you can trust is yourself. I don't think that's how you can build a large company.
You need a team, right?
You need a team.
Yeah.
You need a team. It is extremely important. Things happen, things that you planned for will happen, did not plan for will happen. And it is, sometimes I look back at my own life and I feel like, it's out of a novel or a book or something, because I didn't think. If you'd asked an 18-year-old, Radhika, is this what your life was going to be? I would have said, no way, I'm going to be like in some place kind of a thing.
Okay.
It'll happen. Life gives you many, many chances. Don't lose it because of lack of trust.
Got it.
Having said that, paperwork, clean work, very, very important.
Sure. So you exited ShopClues in 2021.
Exited ShopClues in 2019 is when we sold to Q10, which is a Korean company, and was under contract for 2 years. Exited in March 21. Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. Kida. Very problematic.
Yeah.
I know you've been an entrepreneur yourself, and you know how that works. I thought about, and that was also COVID, tail end of COVID, right? So COVID, working from home, gave me a big opportunity to think about what do I want to do with my life. What do I do in the next decade of my life? All that thinking did not result in anything. It just resulted in another startup happening.
That's great. Okay. And that's what led to Kindlife, right?
That's what led to Kindlife.
Yeah. So ShopClues, I can understand.
Yeah.
The origin, how you thought about it and whatever. So what was the thinking which led to Kindlife?
So I started off by saying that building a company is not easy. Takes a toll on everything. Takes a toll on your physical life, it takes a toll on your mental life, everything. The last 2016, 17, 18, 19, very, very tough years for me professionally and personally. Spent a lot of time, just fighting external battles. By the time it came about that I looked at myself, I realized that physically I was sick. My cortisol was through the roof. I was not looking after myself. I couldn't sleep. And I just felt like an 80-year-old, and now I feel like that's also a wrong word, because a lot of 80-year-olds are very, very healthy. And took a step back in 2021 to kind of figure out that how do I kind of, in 2021, when we were at the COVID space at working from home, and realized that wellness was not a big part of my life. My undergrad is in nutrition. I understand nutrition well. I was implementing 0 principles in my own life. 0. It was all about, I'm going to go on this diet, I'm going to lose this weight, I'm going to fit into this size, and then be there for 6 months and then be back on it. The internal health was not priority. And in COVID, when suddenly Giloy was in everybody's fridge, I had never heard of Giloy before that, and Kara recipes were doing the round, and multiple conversations, I realized that well-being is going to be the conversation of the next decade. And while in the US, you could walk into a Whole Foods and find pretty much anything that you want for your health, for your wellness, in India, that was not possible. A lot of these conversations were happening either on Facebook or were happening on Instagram. There were a lot of these gurus who were talking about it on different spaces. WhatsApp पे कोई group join कर लिया. But there was no single place where you could discover more things about wellness. No single place where you could go in and find, what is the right protein powder for me? What are the supplements I should be taking? What do I put on my skin? And that was really the genesis of it. Of course, being a business person, I go back and look at what is happening in the country as well. At that time, our GDP was 1.82 trillion. It's going to go up to 6 trillion over the next decade. And two of the key driving factors for this are going to be that consumers are going to buy better. And yay to our GDP per person going up. And states like yours are even better, right? And our consumers are going to buy better, and consumers are going to buy newer categories.
Now, going to become more conscious.
More conscious. Ayurveda, I count that as a new category. We never consumed Ayurveda in the way it is being consumed now. So this is putting both of these, my own personal experience and the fact that business-wise it made sense as well, is when I started thinking that I'm going to build something out. But I didn't want to build something out where I'm in e-commerce, where I'm stuck on reliant on the same go-to-market, that I'm going to work on performance, etc. A lot of conversations around health, wellness, better beauty happen with colleagues, happen with friends, happen with experts, Word of mouth is very, very critical. So Kindlife today is built out on content. It's built out on creators. And creators are our key opinion consumers. They could be nutritionists, dietitians, makeup artists, aestheticians, dermatologists, who tell you what are the right products for you, right? They recommend, they have their own stores on Kindlife. And even if you go to your own doctor, he says that these are the supplements you can
So is there like an assessment?
There is an assessment. There is an AI-led assessment.
Okay.
There is an in-person assessment that you can sign up for. And if you know what you want to buy, you can come in and buy the traditional way, looking at the categories as well. So the way we've done the categories in this is in the body, on the body, around the body. So in the body is anything that you consume, healthy snacks, healthy food, nutrition supplements, collagen, protein powders, etc., etc. On the body is anything that you apply on your body for beauty, personal care. And around the body is home care, sexual wellness, pet care, mom and baby, a lot of the adjacent categories.
Okay. And what's the demographic? How many consumers do you now have on the platform?
Yes. So we launched in December 21. So we are a community of about 400,000 people already. Yeah.
Okay.
So about about 17 months now.
Okay.
And about 400,000 people. And the demographic that we are targeting, if you follow us, and I'm just going to give a shameless plug here, please follow us on Instagram, kindlife.in. And it's a younger brand tonality that we have. We're talking to Gen Zillennials. So we're talking to the older Gen Z, and we're talking to the younger millennials.
18 to 40?
18 to 34.
So that excludes us, right?
No, it includes.
We're young at heart. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
No, I think of myself as a very conscious consumer, so I'm the right consumer for that as well.
Okay.
But the brand tonality is slightly younger for sure.
Okay. And when you conceived of this idea, right? In terms of, people ask you, obviously second time, third time founder. So you raised money. And this question, and this is really more a question I'm asking on behalf of many of our startups.
Yeah.
Is this whole question of what is your moat?
Yeah.
What is the total addressable market and all of that? Talk us through some of that.
You want me to make a pitch here, right?
Not a pitch, but really in terms of...
I think those are all very, very critical questions, right? my biggest learning over the last 10 years is that ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution is key, very, very key. When we started e-commerce in India, we knew that we had at ShopClues, we knew we had a very clear differentiated strategy of bringing supply and demand together. But that's what everybody does. All e-commerce is bringing supply and demand together. The differentiation in your mind is clear from day zero. Sometimes for the external stakeholders, it takes a couple of years for it to come by. For me, it has been very clear what I'm building out. There are 3 large categories that I'm playing in: beauty, personal care, which is possibly going to be an $8 billion category in India over the next 5 to 7 years. Food and beverages, so in that category itself, and healthy food itself, again, we are talking easily a $3 to $4 billion category that is there, and everything else that is another 3 to 4 billion categories. I'm targeting a total about 20 billion plus addressable market, right? Now, what are my moats? I understand e-commerce better than
Most.
I want to say 99% of people here, because I've lived and breathed that. I don't necessarily want to make the same mistakes that have been made by a lot of us earlier. I don't want to be reliant on Google's, Facebook's of the world to be able to drive traffic, because we're building a business. It's sacrosanct to be able to have unit economics that are done the right way, right? And that has actually played out in our favor, because our focus on unit economics from day zero, because of my past experience as well, has played out well in the current funding market that is there. I've been in this space for 15 odd years. I've not seen a funding winter like this ever before. This is a very, very different time.
I just want to stop you there. So in terms of, this is a question, 2021 was scorching summer. Now we have funding winter, right?
Right? Yes.
So for someone who's wanting to start out now, right, or has started out, is now getting beyond the friends and family, type of thing. If you were to tell them, listen, here are the 3 things you should be thinking about very, very hard, right? And these are the 3 things which will appeal to a potential investor for him to even think about, him or her to think about putting money into your business. What would those 3 be?
So the first advice I would give them is that this is the time to survive. Whatever capital you have, you should assume that there is no more capital coming in. Okay. Survive as long as you can take.
Just extend the runway as long as you can.
Extend the runway as long as possible. Go neutral, cut down founder salaries, go as long as possible. This is the most important thing. If you've survived, you will be fine, because the markets will turn. And I want to shout this from rooftops for entrepreneurs, because I don't think a lot of people still understand it. A lot of the news articles that you read about somebody raising capital has either been done previous year or has been in the works for 7 to 8 months or longer. The kind of diligence that's being done now for Series A is the kind of diligence that used to be done for Series D, Series E earlier. So best is if you have capital extended as you can, as far as you can. The second one that I feel is important and important for both the, founders and the investors, is the concept of moats, which you talked about. Moats are sometimes in the brain of the founder. The moats are clear from day zero, but sometimes moats have to be built out over time. If you think that the kind of capital you raise is going to help you build out the moats, take it easy. Rethink it. The moats have to be a little more sharper than that. There was a time when the capital you raised was your moat, and we stumbled because of that a little bit at ShopClues, because people around us raised like 10 times the capital we landed up.
So you had this keeping up with the Jones mentality.
It was not keeping up with the Jones. It just was the market became crazy, right?
Correct.
Customer cost of acquisition goes through the roof. And I'm talking in context of consumer tech, but I don't see how that's different from B2B, SaaS, any of that world, right? You have to be revenue generating way before you needed to be in the previous worlds.
Understood.
revenue generating, monetization. Have a very clear path to that.
One question on this. Obviously, this whole thing around frugal marketing, right?
Yes,
Which is
yes.
how do you, in these tough times, you still have to let people have to know what you're doing, and that's when they'll come in and start to examine what you're doing. So what would you say founders should be thinking about? How to stretch their mark, the dollar,
The
to get those.
CEO
Yeah.
needs to also be the chief hack officer. You have to think out of the box. The traditional way of go-to-markets are not going to work anymore.
Okay.
You cannot work. Have to think out. You have to think out of the box anyways to build out a business. I think that part is very, very clear. Like for us, I keep going back to our ShopClues example, and then I'll give you an example at Kindlife as well. But at ShopClues, we realized that on Sunday, we were not getting any traffic here. Because people used to log in from their work computers and do all their shopping. And it was pre-mobile days. So then we launched the Sunday Free Market, where people were forced to take out their laptops and start shopping. And suddenly Sunday was our largest day. We didn't spend any more money. In fact, we cut down our marketing costs very, very strongly. At Kindlife as well, we realized that nutrition packs sell better. So we do peanut butter, protein powder all together. And we started reaching out to a lot of these small, what we call key opinion consumers, small gym owners, small nutritionists, etc. And we would tell them that we'll put a pack of about 10 of these individual products and we'll ship this out to you. And you can sell it forward to your consumers. About 30% of my business comes from this right now.
Okay.
My customer cost of acquisition is extremely low. This is a CM2 positive business for me. So thought process. And this was not a moat that I had when I started the business. It's become a very strong moat now.
Got it.
Because I have people who come back, my repeats are very strong, my AOVs are very strong, my marketing is very low. The Meesho, very similar example as well. So I think thinking out of the box is very, very critical. Just the classic thought process does not work. First principle thinking again, completely.
Okay. I'm going to switch tracks a little bit. So you've been through a really, really interesting journey.
Yeah.
Most people, you've actually lived multiple lives.
Absolutely.
In a sort of way, right? So, and obviously you're a mother, right? And this whole thing around work and life and the balance around it. And you also talked about how Kindlife actually, kind of came out of that kind of thing. So, but how do you, it's very hard now. For example, think about a young founder, trying to raise money and having the door slammed in his or her face regularly. How do you keep sane? So, what are the 3 things you do? For example, what would you tell people to say? Listen, keep sane, man. This will pass. This too will pass, type of thing.
I think I have this large thing on my desk that one of my teammates drew out for me, because I would just keep saying that in all team meetings, everything, and that's been really the mantra of my life. It is just show up. Just show up for things that are important for you. You have to. For me, work is critical. I come to work, whether it has been a bloodbath, whether it is the biggest celebration, I am there. The first person my team sees, whether they've been trashed in press, whether they've been trashed by a customer, is me. I am leading from the front. I show up every day. Similarly, for my children, I show up every day. When they need me, I am there. Am I always able to balance this out? No, but these 2 are the most important things in my life. Am I able to balance these 2 out? Yes. What falls away? It's that story about, in a jar, how do you fit all of the water, all of the pebbles, all of the rocks in, My big rocks are very, very clear. They're non-negotiable for me. And I make sure that they are non-negotiable. But as a second-time founder, I also have one more mantra. I look after myself. I look after myself better. I take time. I take time to just be, and I take time to keep upgrading my own knowledge system.
I was going to come to that.
You know,
How do you think
I
of change?
I read like a mad person completely.
Okay.
I read a lot. I read a lot of blogs as well, etc. But books is something that I'm very, very close to. I'm also very privileged.
What do you read?
I read a lot of biographies. I'm currently reading both and by Huma Abedin, who was the chief of staff to Hillary Clinton. And it is fascinating when I read these stories because it just... I just think of everything that goes into a lifetime, into making a person, and so much is possible and so much is based on destiny. But there's so much you learn from their life.
And so some things happen by design.
Something
by
happened.
chance.
Yes, absolutely. So that's one thing that I read. I read a lot of history.
Okay.
My current book that I'm rereading, I don't know for what time, is Discovery of India.
Okay.
And I'm also watching Bharate Coach. I don't know. A lot of people don't remember it. Did you?
I do remember.
Doordarshan?
Coach, yeah.
So there
People
are
are. I was going to say people our generation.
Our vintage. But it is
Yeah.
phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
These are these 58 episodes that are on YouTube for everybody. You must watch it
Okay.
at one point or the other.
Okay.
History is a big one for me.
Okay.
And I talk to intelligent people like yourself.
Okay.
So I think that
So I have to ask this question. I think a couple of more questions, but I want to ask this. You've been one of the few iconic women who made it big, and not just once, but multiple times. And obviously, this is something which we are all conscious of, that we need more women participation in the workforce. COVID, I think, has been very damaging from that perspective, and more women to do what you've been doing, right? So, as a founder, 3 times over, right? Have you ever seen gender being an issue in terms of bias and?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, but yes.
Okay, but do you see it changing?
I see it changing pretty significantly.
Okay.
In 2013, I remember having this, actually 2014, having this conversation with Upasana Thakur, the MobiKwik founder. We were at a conference and it was the two of us and a lot of men, all men. And we said we are going to make this group called Female Founder Group on WhatsApp. And it was her and me for the longest time. Now I think we have about 800 people on that group.
Okay.
So that is a measurable number for me. I am also a member, if I want to say, about 6 other groups, which are about women development. I see Ragini build out Leap Club. I see Abha build out Ladies Who Lead. So there is a lot of conscious push that is happening on pushing women to take on more leadership roles. And I don't think it's pushing women to, let me rephrase that. It is giving them the right resources to be able to take on more leadership roles. So while it's got a lot better, we are still sitting in 2023, where less than 15% of venture capital goes towards women.
I was going to come to that.
How is that fair? How is that fair? So I think that is a definite question mark for me. And I think even for myself personally, when I...
So you said you invested in about 30 companies yourself, right?
Yeah.
How many of them are?
Very ashamed. Less than 5.
Why is that?
Because I didn't find enough. I joined a group where I was going to mentor startups. And I said, I will mentor only women-led startups. And I had signed up for mentoring 10 startups over 2 years. Two came through. That's it. So the funnel is narrow, right? The problem is that the funnel has to be wider.
Okay.
And when a lot of people...
So if we were at one last question, just to build on this. So if there was a young girl out there who has an idea about doing something, what would, if I were to ask you, saying, listen, and I think you've said a lot of this, but I kind of want to kind of, encapsulate all of what you said into, let's say, 2 or 3 lines. What would you tell a young girl who thinks about saying, listen, I want to go out and start a business? What are the 3-4 things you should just keep top of our head?
Be fearless. Failure is not as scary as it seems.
The world will rise even if you...
Yes.
Sun will rise tomorrow.
Yes, sun will rise tomorrow. Be fearless. Do it. Show up. And life gives you many chances. You have to be able to take them. You know, it is one of women I respect a lot, Vani, in fact, told me that there is a lot of negative voices all around you, right? Sometimes they're about you, about your company, what you're building, anything. She said, I don't even let them come here. You know, I don't let them enter my head, but I don't even let them come near my ear. And I follow that too. I don't really give a fudge about anything, you know. But it's taken me, I'm 47, it's taken me a while to get here. And I want women, young girls to realize, please be fearless. Everything that you're afraid of right now is not important. You'll be fine. Take the risk.
So on that note, Radhika, it's been real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so
Really amazing journey you've had. We look forward to you inspiring many more young people to go out, and this country needs entrepreneurs, right? You have so many issues and challenges to solve, and what you are solving for, I think, is amazing. So good luck, and look forward to building on this conversation. There's a lot of things I think we can draw on from your journey, and particularly for all our startups. So we'll reach out. Thank you for being here, and much appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.